Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel once before. So the last beer that I had from these guys was really quite impressive actually. I thought it was a very interesting one and it really tested my palate, and these guys are a very new addition to the Scottish beer scene, but they've had some great plaudits for their beers, and based on the first one I had I can see why. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their core range beers. It's a style that I've been getting a little bit more into recently, I have to say, and one that you don't see brewed all that often among the Scottish craft breweries actually, and that was the main reason that this one kind of caught my eye. So, needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head up to Inverness once again, a very pretty city, the Highland capital in the kind of northwestern part of the country, and that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from Falls Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Konventional Wisdom. It comes in at 4.8% ABV, and this one is a Kölsch, or I guess we have to say Kölsch style ale because it's not brewed in Cologne itself. But yeah, lovely beer style this one. We've been reviewing a few of the authentic German Kölsch beers on the channel recently because it was a style that I hadn't explored all that much. So when I saw that Falls were doing one, I thought we need to have a little look at this and see how they do with the style, because I'm in a good position to see how authentic it is at the moment. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we got on. The Konventional Wisdom, 4.8% Kölsch from Falls Brewing Company in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Falls Brewing Company already, and we will add a few more to that list in the near future because I've got 2 more beers to look at from them in their core range. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things, and remember you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then and tell you a wee bit once again about Falls Brewing Company. So as I've mentioned to you already, Falls Brewing are based in Inverness, the Highland capital in the northwestern part of Scotland, and the company was founded back in 2019 by husband and wife team Robert and Louise Masson. So Robert comes from an engineering background and worked in the oil industry for a number of years, but he was also a huge fan of mountain biking, but apparently he suffered quite a bad injury, and it was the downtime from mountain biking that really pushed him to pursue his home brewing hobby a little bit more. He found that he really enjoyed it and decided eventually that he wanted to turn this into his profession. I believe that Louise comes from more of a kind of management background. I think she was a project manager if I'm not mistaken, but today it's Robert that takes care of the brewing side of things, while Louise is doing a little bit more to manage the business side of things and taking care of the admin and all of this, but she does take part in the brewing as well from what I understand. But they released their first beers at the Inverness Farmers Market in the lead up to Christmas of 2019, and they were originally producing their beer in their garage in Scanieport, which was apparently just a very small 25 square metre thing. But this little facility that they had there, if you can call it that, allowed them to produce around 20,000 litres of beer per year. They had a little brew kit and 3 fermenters in there. But in late 2022 they relocated to a new unit on Lotland Place to the north of Inverness city centre, and they brewed their first batch of beer there in December. But the new site saw them add 3 1,500 litre fermenters, and they plan to produce between 1,000 and 1,500 litres of beer per week in this facility. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 15 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. They have 9 different core beers from what I understand, which is one of the larger core ranges that I've seen from a brewery this young. But as I've said in the other reviews, Dog Falls have been getting a lot of plaudits, and their beers seem to be really highly regarded actually. So I'm quite curious to try one of their core beers and see what it's all about, especially when it's a style that is pretty difficult to get right, based on my previous experiences. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Dog Falls Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. And the artwork that you're seeing on this one is a lot more akin to what you will see regularly from Dog Falls Brewing. The last one we had, which was the Quercus 22, that had quite a special piece of artwork on it, which I have to say it was very, very nice. But you can see the Dog Falls Brewing symbol on there. I think that's not showing up so well when the beer's further away, just because it's yellow background. But yeah, there you can see down there, Konventional Wisdom, with the odd spelling, obviously to recognise Köln, or Cologne as you would say in English. But as I said earlier, this one comes in at 4.8% ABV, which is, pretty much in line with what you would expect from most Kölsches. But it says on the side here, Köln's fiercely guarded Kölsch is the perfect anathema to today's anemic mass-manufactured lagers of indistinction. Light, crisp and mindlessly refreshing, this Kölsch endlessly refreshing, this Kölsch style beer proves that less can indeed be more. Dog Falls is a microbrewery in the heart of the Highlands, sustainably crafting fresh, bold and distinctive beer. So yeah, 440ml can, like I said, plain silver top on it, and as I said, 4.8% Kölsch beer, this one. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, the Kölsch as a style comes from Köln in Germany. It's usually it's very similar in flavour profile to German Helles, of course, but the main difference is that the German Helles is a lager, so it uses bottom fermenting yeast and ferments at lower temperatures, usually about 8 to 12 degrees Celsius, whereas the Kölsch style is an ale, so it uses top fermenting yeast, but it is quite a low temperature fermentation that takes place in Kölsch, which is why it's quite a light and low alcohol beer, because usually ales will ferment between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what this one is all about. I'm really curious to see how this beer is going to be, and as I've mentioned in many German reviews before, or many reviews of German style beers brewed in other countries, what I look for with these is that they're authentic and true to style. And for me, the main difference I've found between the Helles Lager and the Kölsches that I've tried recently is the mouthfeel, actually, which makes sense. So yeah, let's take a little look at this one now that we've got it out. So yeah, as you can see, the beer is poured pretty much as you would expect of the style. So before the head disappears, we have about a 2/3, somewhere between a half and 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head there. So you've got some nice medium bubbles sitting at the top of the surface there. As you move further up, you've got a little bit more of a kind of lighter foamy head to this one. You can see like smaller, more foamy bubbles in there, but you can see the beer itself has poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of it too. But yeah, you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the Kölsch style. You can see this one has a lovely little bit of natural haze to it, as many of the beers do, and there are one or two little bits of sediment kind of floating around in this one, so I'm not sure if my mum and dad's fridge is maybe just a little bit too cold for some of these beers, because I have noticed that in a few that I've had recently, because it is pretty fresh, this one, from what I understand. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but you can see that head has faded away to be a very thin, foamy layer at the moment. But yeah, this beer looks pretty much as you would expect from a Kölsch, and like I said earlier, we are in a good position on the channel just now to judge Kölsches on their authenticity and things. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I'm very, very curious about this beer. So, I'm going to say straight away, that is pretty damn authentic. My guess, it's got German malt in it, a Kölsch yeast, and a bit of German hop. This one is pretty damn close to what we've been having from the likes of Cooper's and Reisdorf and all of these other guys recently. This is impressive. So I'm going to say straight away, thumbs up to Falls Brewing for doing something a wee bit different, because I mean the only brewery I would really expect this style from in Scotland would be West, down in Glasgow. You know, they brew all these different kinds of German beers. But yeah, this, I have to say, is a very nice smelling Kölsch actually. Yeah, gives you everything you want. A bit of smooth breadiness, a little touch of hoppy character, a little tiny bit of fruitiness, but again, it's quite light and crisp and very similar in profile to the German Helles lager. So yeah, let's just try and break this aroma down a wee bit more for you and describe it a little bit more in depth. So for me, the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust there. That is of course the backbone of this beer. You get a little tiny touch of like a woodiness out of it. There is a wee bit of like a Jacob's cream cracker type note in there as well, but mainly the backbone of this beer is a lovely kind of fresh white bready, almost slightly floury bread crusty character. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice, in fact. So that gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, on top of that, there's a little touch of like a wholemeal brown bready character, not too much. So yeah, a little touch of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character in this one. And then, yeah, on top of that, you get a nice big fluffy white bready character coming out of the beer. So yeah, a nice big fluffy white bready character coming out of it. And it smells so fresh actually. You can just smell, there's something about the German malts. I would not be surprised if this is, you know, a Weirmann malt that's been used in here. A very famous malting company, of course, from Bamberg in Franconia in northern Bavaria in Germany. Although I'm sure, you know, it could well be malt taken from the Kölsch, the Köln region, because it does smell really damn authentic actually. But yeah, the fluffy white bready character you get out of this is lovely. On top of that, you do get a little element of a kind of biscuity character coming out of it, but again, that's very minimal. The focus of the Kölsch, of course, is more of a kind of white bready character, but there are little hints of a McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. There's a little bit of a kind of yeah, there's a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuit, a little bit of a kind of more oily biscuit too. But yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. The malt base, as I say, is really authentic, and what I look for in these beers is a level of authenticity. This one has it on pretty much all counts. So yeah, I don't know if we really need to say much more about the malty side of this beer. The only other thing I could say in that regard is maybe a little bit to do with the yeast. You do get that really nice kind of crackery, slightly woody, yeasty character coming out of this one, which I think is great. But on the hoppy side of things, it's typical German noble hops, Hallertau, Tettnanger. I'm not sure which one you would be more likely to use with a Kölsch. Potentially Tettnang, because I think it's a little bit closer than Hallertau is, but correct me on that if I'm wrong. But yeah, for me, you've got a nice little bit of that typical smooth, earthy character that you forget from the noble hops. There's a little bit of there is a little bit of a slightly herbal note to this one. Nice little touch of floral aromaticity there. It's quite a bright floral aromaticity, but not like overpowering. I think that's definitely fair to say. So I do like how that goes together. On top of that, you've got a nice little touch of brighter grassiness too. And yeah, the green component in this beer for me, it's not too powerful and overpowering, it's just nice and quite smooth. And again, this is something that you do expect of the German noble hops, and I think it probably is like Mittelfrüh hops they're using in here, because they don't come across as being particularly potent and high in alpha acid. You get a lot, you know, if you were using Pearl or Hercules or something like this, I think it would be just that little bit more potent and sharp, and in terms of its grassy and floral character, whereas this one really is quite smooth. Of course, the Kölsch is not the most hop-forward of styles, even within the lager category, even within the kind of blonde German, light drinkable things. But yeah, it does come across really nicely, and again, authenticity is what we want here. That's what we're getting in abundance. So on the fruity side of things, you have a little bit of sultana, you know, dry white, green, grapey characters. I've got a little bit of an oily pear, but not too much. I actually get a little bit more of like a really kind of dry apricot-y character out of this beer. So a little bit of dry apricot-y character underneath, maybe a little touch of like a fresh green apple at the front of the nose. And then yeah, there's a little touch of a more kind of gooseberry type note out of this one too. So yeah, oily pear. So I think yeah, sultanas, a little bit of apricot, oily pear, a wee bit of a kind of gooseberry note, and then a little touch of a slightly sharper citrusy character coming out of this beer too. But aroma wise, it is pretty damn nice, I have to say, and very authentic, and that's what we want. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time just to ponder over the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and just see what it's all about. So yeah, let's do this. So this could be quite interesting. This is the Konventional Wisdom, a 4.8% Kölsch style ale, we have to say, because it's not from Köln itself, from Falls Brewing Company in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty nice. What I will say about this one is that it's very clean, and what I've found with the Kölsches is that they have this very smooth breadiness and slightly more oily character. It's a very slight oily character, and the thing that's interesting with this one for me is that a lot of that comes out later on. It comes out later in the flavour than you would get from the authentic Köln brewed thing. I do think this is probably to do with the water in Scotland. You know, a lot of people say that water profile doesn't affect the beer. I've had this argument with other reviewers, but it does. The water profile can affect your beer quite a lot. And one thing I do find with Scottish beers generally is that you get with the brewing quality is very good. At the same time though, you will notice a difference. The water just tastes different. Scottish water for me is very, very clean, and you can taste that cleanliness in this beer, and that's what lets you know that it's not a German brewed Kölsch. But I like it. It gives you the exact aftertaste and things that you'd expect of the beer, and it's a very well done Kölsch. Just that little bit cleaner in its water profile, I think. And this is a Scottish thing, you know. We are very proud of our tap water up here. But I will say straight away, for a style that's difficult to get spot on, you know, Dogfalls have done pretty good here. I'm curious to try their other styles. Actually, we need to see about getting a darker beer from them at some point, because that's not something I have from what I've picked up already. But yeah, this is good. So it gives you everything you want from the Kölsch. The breadiness, the little touch of hoppy character, the little bit of sweetness, and also just that little bit of kind of fruity character. It gives you all of these things. Let's just break that flavour down a little bit more and describe the beer a wee bit more in depth, as we often do. So we'll start on that middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of the beer, you have that lovely, smooth, fresh, white bready bread crust in there. That goes together really, really nicely. So that sits there, fresh, white bready bread crust. Further forward on that middle third of the palate, you do get a little touch of a kind of woody note to the beer. And above that, there's a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery type quality. And then you're getting all the kind of bready notes out of the beer. So, for me, above the cracker, you've got a nice little bit of, above the crackery character, you get that little bit of, I would say you get that little bit of kind of wholemeal brown bready character, and that becomes a little bit more obvious the further into the aftertaste you go. You get a bit more of the cracker, a bit more of the wood, and a wee bit with that more kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing. But then above all of that, you get a fluffier white bready character. And the white bready character you get out of this beer actually does have a little bit of density to it, but it is at the same time quite fluffy and quite fresh feeling, so you can't knock it. Definitely can't knock it. Yeah, this is good. It gets better and better the more that you drink of it. But yeah, above the kind of white bready layer, you start to get that little touch of sweetness out of this one. So the sweetness is very, very light. I will point that out quite clearly. It is a very light sweetness that you'll get out of this beer. But then yeah, you've got that nice little bit of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character there. You've kind of got like a circle in that middle third of your palate, so you can feel the circle there. There's that little bit of biscuity character in the base, and then in the dead centre of your palate you get this more oily, kind of concentrated biscuity character, which is good too. So yeah, for me, there's, yeah, in the dead centre of your palate you get that little more concentrated circle, which is where the alcohol's coming out of the beer, and then yeah, as you move out further toward the edge of that middle third of your palate, it is more about the kind of crispier biscuit, if we can call it that. So yeah, that's the middle third of your palate. Yeah, it goes together really well in that sense. So I think that's everything we need to say about that middle third of the palate, to be honest with you. Very authentic and everything you'd expect of the Kölsch. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a bready build up in there. A little bit of brown bread in the base, a bit of a fluffier white bread coming further up from that, which is great. And the back third of your palate has everything else going on in it too. And it's, as I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate. They just come out at different intensities. But do remember that trend with your tongue, whereas the sweeter flavours are going to come out further forward, and the more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So, on the back third of your palate, you've got that nice kind of, you can feel that kind of bread crusty base again, so really nice kind of dry bread crusty base. On top of that, you've got a Jacob's cream crackery type note, which is good. So yeah, as I say, kind of, yeah, fresh white bread crusty base. The Jacob's cream cracker note is there. These both feel a little bit drier on that back third of your palate. Then above that, you have the kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there, which you can feel is a bit lighter and a little bit more airy. And then above that, you've got a fluffy white bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, you can feel that in there. And again, these are the same flavours you get in the middle third of your palate, but they just feel lighter and more airy. And above that, you can feel a little bit of a drier and more dense white bready character just sitting on top of that. And then you get all the yeasty notes coming out of the beer above everything else. So let's just have a little look at the yeasty characters that this beer is showing off. So, for me, the yeasty side of this beer, you have this very light, farmhousey, kind of wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, nice light kind of farmhousey white bread there. It's got a little bit more woody character to it, a little bit more crackery note, and then it's just wrapped in this very slight honeycomb type thing. And yeah, I really do like how that goes together. So yeah, on the back third of your palate, you can definitely feel that the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that a little bit more. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really quite nice. The malty and yeasty side of this beer is pretty much spot on for the style. Like I say, it's just that little bit cleaner. But yeah, very good Kölsch. On the hoppy side of things, again, it's what you'd expect of the style. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, you get that little touch of herbal character, and as you push towards the kind of front corners of your palate, you get a nice little bit of floral aromaticity and a bit of lighter grassiness in there. And again, that gets a big thumbs up from me. Very typical noble hoppy notes. Tasting this one though, I would say the floral character is a little bit more pungent, prominent than I had expected it would be from the aroma. So I might have been wrong. They might be using a little bit of pearl or something in this one of the slightly higher alpha acid German hops, but the characters are distinctly German and noble, so that's absolutely fair to say. On the front third of your palate then, let's have a little look at this on the fruity side of the beer. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of bready build up in this one. So there's a wee bit of a more wholemeal brown bready character in the base, and again you've got the white bready character on top. Then the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. You've got a nice little bit of you've got the fresh white bready bread crust in there, a little bit of cracker on top of that, the wholemeal brown bread and the white bread, and then you get just that little oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at that. So for me, it is again what I was kind of expecting from the style. It's it has this really nice, at the back of that front third of your palate, you're getting this little bit of kind of sultana, white, green, grapey type character coming out of it, which again is something you'll find in the style quite often. Then as you move further forward into the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a little touch of a kind of like dry apricot-y character, and there's a little bit of a dry apricot-y sort of thing. Then above that you have a little bit more of a little bit of dry apricot in there, and then above that there's just this little touch of oily pear. And as you move further forward on the on that front third of your palate, you get a little bit of an almost like gooseberry type character underneath, and then you've got a wee bit more of a kind of fresh green apple sitting on top of that. I think that describes the fruity part of this beer pretty well, to be honest with you. That for me is what I'm getting at least, and these are all things you expect of the style, as I've repeated a few times in this review. So yeah, flavour profile wise, very authentic Kölsch. It just feels that little bit cleaner, to be honest with you. I think that's where it varies from the original, but we can let them away with that, of course. But yeah, I think on that note, it's a good point to move over to the mouthfeel to round off the review. So for me, this is a very kind of, I would say it's a very light beer, this one. You're talking kind of mid-range of light-bodied. The carbonation does have a degree of crispness to it, which is good. You want that from the Kölsch. But then, nice degree of crispness in there. And overall, it is just quite a light and it's got a good bit of dryness to it, this one as well, which is interesting. It's maybe not quite as smooth as some of the German brewed Kölsches that you'll come across, but the flavour profile is authentic, and that is of course the main thing. In terms of IBU count in this beer, I would guess that it's about 20-ish IBUs. It feels around that kind of level, and that is again standard for the style. The malt base, like we said, it has a little bit of nice dryness underneath. You've got a little bit of smoothness in the middle, and just that little touch of biscuity sweetness on top. Again, all things you expect of the style, and then you have some really nice little bits of fruity character, a dry fruity character that comes out a wee bit later on, especially the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, it's a lovely, lovely Kölsch, this one. And it's, as I say, I got this at a good point when I'd been reviewing a few German brewed Kölsches. It is pretty damn authentic, just maybe not quite as, it just maybe doesn't quite have that kind of creamy thing that you can get from some of the Kölsch ones. It just feels that little bit lighter and crisper and cleaner, probably due to the Scottish water. But yeah, very good take on the style, and I think this is as I say, it's a core beer as well. So this is probably the most accessible Kölsch beer that you can get in Scotland, is apart from maybe Fru Kölsch, of course, which is the original one. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. This was the Konventional Wisdom, 4.8% Kölsch style ale from Falls Brewing in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. Really nicely done beer, this one, and it gets a thumbs up from me. So yeah, I think this has been good. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Falls Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slange, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you again later on.